Welcome to a special edition of the Pick Six podcast where our kicks are accurate, hidden yardage is scarce, and our takes are all on point. I'm Evan with Sam and Jimmy. Thanks for listening today. How are you guys doing coming off what was a wild overtime loss for Nebraska against Michigan State last week?
I don't know if all of our takes are on point, but at the very least, I think they could point in the right direction. No?
Oh!
They're directional.
I'm good. How are you guys?
Jimmy coming strong with the pun game. Are those puns?
I don't know. I don't know if it was a pun, but it's topical. It's topical. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing all right. I think, we came back. We had a late game on Michigan State, early flight the next morning. I was on the struggle bus when I got home. I was pretty tired that next day.
How much sleep did you get?
Not a lot. So I woke up at like 5 a.m. to kind of write my rewind. Had to rewatch the game because it wasn't on where it normally is. I had to watch it on YouTube. There was like a bootleg copy of it. So I watched the game again and watched the punt again. I missed a play in overtime because I was trying to get down to the field. So I missed the second play, the low throw to Omar Manning. So yeah, that was a moment. But yeah, I mean, I think we're doing all right. I thought after last week, if Nebraska didn't win, we'd be sitting here talking about, but I don't know that that's what we're going to do, is it?
No, I don't think it is. We're going to get into a lot of things, I think, today. We're going to talk about progress. How much has Nebraska progressed or regressed? We're going to map out what a successful finish to this season could look like, starting with Northwestern. We're going to pick some games. Pretty good slate this week.
Great slate.
But our big red idea to start, and this was the theme of the press conference on Monday, is this idea of changing midstream. Scott Frost came out and said they need a left guard, they need better play at right tackle, they are overhauling or looking at special teams with a new critical eye that maybe they didn't have before. What were your impressions of that news? And then also, which do you think is more fixable over the second half of the season? Is it the O-line or the special teams?
Well, in theory, you should be able to fix the special teams pretty easily because you have lots more skill players on your team from a returner standpoint that you should be able to insert into a game. You should be able to get more consistency with your kickers. Kickers have bad days. They have bad days. And I think Pristop had a bad day, and then Cherney came on and did something that we already know he's not great at, which is directional punting. And I'll be curious to hear, because, I haven't listened to Mike Dawson's press conference, but the answer that he gave about they're going to go forward with this sort of righty-lefty thing is bizarre to me, especially in the fact that it didn't work. But so you would normally say special teams, but I'm so alarmed by like the struggles and frustrations that they've had at each level that I almost want to say the offensive line, not because that's easy, but because Nebraska seems to have made special teams uniquely difficult.
They have.
I would say, well, first of all, my reaction to the shakeups, good. Something needed to change, right? Every single week, there's been some sort of special team snafu. It's impressive. And the offensive line is just not where it needs to be. That much is clear. We'll probably see some different guys shuffling in there. I mean, I think Sam outlined it pretty well. Special teams has to be the thing that's more correctable, right? Like, at a certain point, these guys do, like, all they do is kick. It's the only thing they do. Right. So they're gonna back themselves into doing it correctly at some point, I would think. Now the counterpoint to that is this has kind of always been a problem under Scott Frost's direction. I don't want to put all that on him, but he's the face of this, right? And they have had better offensive lines than this. But it's a young group, and the schedule, the Big Ten did not look great on Saturday, but as far as the offensive line's specific responsibility, it is not going to get any easier. There are going to be some talented front sevens that they line up against. I don't know. I honestly don't know that either situation is going to improve much. But special teams you could improve drastically just by putting someone back to return punts who knows how to
Gotta put
return
him on
punts.
the travel roster.
Put him on, yeah.
If it's Will Nixon.
Put Will Nixon on the travel roster.
Got to go to the game.
Yes, put Will
So
Nixon
why
on the
didn't you put
travel
someone else in?
roster.
Well, the guy that we were going to put in was 800 miles away.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Will Nixon is a guy that Sean Beckton mentioned today is someone who he considered like worthy of putting in the game as a punt returner, but he wasn't on the travel roster. So that's a problem. But another guy waiting in the wings potentially, Oliver Martin, who we've been hearing about being very close for a while.
So if Toure got hurt, who are they going to put in? No one?
It's a great question.
Monte Grimes?
It's a great
He
question.
wasn't there. He
No,
wasn't there.
Yeah, he wasn't there.
No, moving forward.
I'm talking
though.
literally
Yes.
on the trip. Samori Toure, for God forbid, gets turf toe or something. Or I don't know. Something happens. He breaks his shoe and he's off the field.
Brody Belt, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
Brody
back to
Belt
Cam.
probably
Well,
gets
then why didn't they put him out there?
I don't know.
Go back to Cam, Taylor Britt.
No. I
No.
don't- See,
That's too. Yeah.
I don't think you can do that.
No.
I think
Why can't you do that?
Because, if he was going to have been out there, he would have been out there. We already know what
We
happens.
know that he's
when
had
out.
struggles, but they haven't fixed it elsewhere. So they initially thought he was the best guy.
The answer
Okay.
is not to go back to the guy who
That
had
was-
a bigger problem.
That was an option, and they did not pursue it.
No?
So let me just talk for a second
go
about
ahead.
so coaches come out, and they want to answer questions. And I really appreciate it. But the answer that was given about that situation is remarkable to me. Maybe it isn't to either one of you, but it was remarkable to me that, he's only been doing it for a couple of weeks. The first one went over his head by a long ways. Okay, so it was a much better punt than he anticipated because he was standing on the 20, right, Evan?
It's about right.
The ball bounced at like the 8. I don't know where it bounced. I think it went into the end zone. I can't even remember. I'm sorry. He was on the 30 and it bounced like 15 yards past him. So their adjustment is, just stand back a little further. And apparently he can't come up on the ball. Okay. And then we would have put another guy in there, but he wasn't on the trip. Those are remarkable. To me, those are remarkable admissions. Like, we don't have anybody who can do the thing that every other team can do. Like, we used to make fun of Santino Panico. We can't.
Nebraska would kill for a Santino Panico right
Well, he
now.
just go up and catch the ball.
Yep. All those hidden yards, don't have to worry about it. He's catching it.
So-
He's not going to return it, but he'll catch it.
To me, that was just a remarkable statement. And I appreciate the honesty from Beckton. Was he trying to say, I wanted Will Nixon to come on the trip and he wasn't part of the roster?
It was more just like we were asking about who are other guys. He was talking about rotating guys in. Who are other guys that you like at that spot? And he was just kind of telling us, yeah, Will Nixon is a guy that I had considered, but he wasn't there. He was just kind of answering a question. Not like no one asked like who else were you, did you consider replacing Samora? It was more like in practice, who have you been using? And he was kind of praising Nixon, like saying Nixon's doing so well in practice that I would have probably considered putting him out there on Saturday, but he wasn't on the travel roster. That's more the tenor of it.
And see, that's why I feel like offensive line has the greater chance.
Hold on, Evan, I want to go back to you saying Cam Taylor Britt could go back there. As many hidden yards as Samori Toure cost Nebraska on Saturday, he still did 50 times better than Cam Taylor Britt did ever did back there.
Come on.
He didn't turn the ball over.
The answer is not to. I mean, look.
I would you still have the ball. No matter how long it bounces, you still have the ball.
I watched Cam last year. He had one good return against Penn State. Maybe there was another one in there, but that was an adventure every single time we went back there.
Sure it was.
And he at Iowa, it kind of cost him the game. And then they kind of said, "Oh, we're going to do it again. He wants to play everywhere. He never wants to leave the field." Safety. Oh, it's just one mistake. Let's put him out there again. Ball bounces off his helmet.
Yep.
That stuff happens. Next game doesn't call fire.
Yeah, I get it.
You could have done that. I'm not saying that they couldn't have done it. I'm just saying that they don't have a control aspect there. They don't know what's going to happen. At least with Toure, I think what they knew was, well, he's not going to fumble it.
You avoid the catastrophic mistakes,
Right.
I suppose.
Anyway, on the offensive line, you were saying.
Well, I guess my point was, and we've kind of fleshed this out a little bit, is like, what if it's just from a pure personnel standpoint, on the offensive line, Nebraska has other options. They have more than a dozen scholarship offensive linemen. They have a guy like Ezra Miller who's done it, at Iowa. He's a former 4-star guy. They have Nuri Newelli, who was a starter at Colorado State and did well. They have Brant Banks, who they've liked and has gotten a little bit of run. But I feel like there are guys there that they can put out there that, maybe you move Turner Corcoran in and put somebody else at tackle. There's just things that you can do. Nebraska hasn't, under Greg Austin, been too willing to move guys around. They've generally stuck with
Teddy Prohaska
with their guys. Prohaska would be, yeah, sure.
You put him at left, Corcoran moves to right.
So, you can see how that could work.
Yeah.
With special teams, what do you say? You have a scholarship punter who's not putting it where you want. You have another punter who's been, shanking punts. He had a good game against Oklahoma. He wasn't great last year. Your returner situation, as we've outlined, what do you do if Oliver Martin's not out there? I just don't know that that's something you can fix within the season when you're preparing for Northwestern and you're preparing for Michigan. Maybe on a bye week you can do a little extended tweaking, but to me, the O-line has the bodies where you can at least see how that could change. I don't see that on the special teams side.
I don't understand. So he said they were going to do a right-left thing, but Pristup's punt, the 7-yarder in the first half, he was on the left hash, was he not?
I believe so, yeah.
And that's where Cherney was when he made the punt, right? Or somewhere he was in the middle?
I think he was in the middle. Because, yeah,
I've never heard of a situation where you would use your punters like a Major League Baseball pitcher matchup.
It's like a bullpen.
I know that's kind of a neat idea, conceptually, and you're a big baseball fan, but does that make any sense?
Not a ton.
Okay. It makes sense in baseball.
Of course.
There's a specific reason in baseball, but
yeah,
of course we don't
lefty-righty
worry about
splits.
what hand the punt returner is in punt returning.
Right. No, that's what Mike Dawson said. I said, I asked him that. I said, why did you rotate both of those guys, and will you do that going forward? And he said the righty-lefty part was a factor. He said Cherney's ability to rugby kick was a factor, and he said they both can kick left, right, wherever they need to directionally, even though that didn't play out. So, yeah, in a sense, you're kind of in this insane asylum where things are being said and you're not seeing it with your eyes on the field. But that's what they're talking about.
The punter piece is less concerning to me because, as I wrote in my Monday Rewind, there's only so much you can control about that. It's like a Ryder Cup captain who sends Rory McIlroy out. The hope is that Rory McIlroy is going to be Rory McIlroy, and then he goes out at the Ryder Cup, and he plays maybe the worst 3 days of his life. I'm not kidding. Anybody who watches that, they saw that out of him. He's crying at the end of it. He knows how bad he was. There's nothing that the captain could have done. You have to put the guy out there, and if the ball does not come off his club the right way, it is what it is. With Connor Culp and with Daniel Cherney, the only thing you can do is not use them. But it's very hard to control what happens once they go out there. And so you have some grace for that. The returner thing is mystifying to me. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. I've never heard of a situation where you had someone, he just started doing it 3 or 4 weeks ago. He doesn't, he's not really comfortable with these things. And the person that we were considering who's been doing really good in practice, we just didn't bring. They had 74 guys. That's more than enough. NFL teams have 60. So I'm surprised. When I read that, I was like, this is surprising to me that such a scenario would arise. It was a surprising scenario to arise.
So we're not quite to the midway point of the season, and Nebraska's 2-3. I think that this conversation of progress is interesting, not just in the wins and losses, which we know obviously isn't up to Nebraska's standard, but how nuanced is that discussion of progress beyond their record when you look at the ways that Nebraska's gotten better, maybe this year or the last couple years? Obviously, there are a lot of chronic issues that we've outlined too. Do you feel like, from what we've seen from Nebraska this year, on the whole, Nebraska has progressed or regressed?
I think that'd be hard for Jimmy to answer because he hasn't seen the previous seasons. I'm going to respond to you, but I want to hear what you think. You're
Can
a
I
more
ask-
measured person than I am.
I thought it was interesting that you said wins and losses haven't been up to Nebraska standard. Obviously, that's true. They've made a bowl game, but
right.
that standard has obviously shifted over the years, right? Where is that right now?
Just 1-6.
Okay.
Pretty much where I think they're at for this year.
Mm-hmm.
They just want some sort of discernible progress. I feel confident in my assessment that I made before the year that it was a 2-year evaluation. I think they just want a situation that gives them an opportunity to have a clean assessment in 2022 when the schedule isn't as hellacious and you're not coming off weird COVID year and your athletic director has been there for a year to work with that coach.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I said last week about giving grace, I think is a factor. So I think whatever they need to do to get it to next year, and if that means different coaches or whatever, maybe it will, but I think they very much want Scott to work. Back to you, Evan. What do you think?
No, I agree with the clean assessment piece. I felt like going into this year that it was possible, and maybe that's what we're seeing, that Nebraska is a better team, but it's not reflected because of the level of competition
We picked a 9-3
that they're
season
playing.
collectively, and they're 2-3, so they'd have to win their last 7.
Right. Not seeing it. But, like, again.
Wait. How did we get to? Because the games we've picked so
I
far.
think we both
8-4 collectively.
We
didn't
both,
we?
yeah. I'm sorry, we were 8-4 collectively. So they're
8-4.
2-3. They're 2-3 right now.
Mhm.
And one of the losses that we picked was Minnesota, and right now I picked that as a win.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that we didn't know before the season is Michigan State's a lot better football team than Minnesota.
Mhm.
Illinois was a shitty loss when it happened, and it remained so.
Mhm.
And they knew it, and they should not have lost that game. That game was very deflating. As deflating as Michigan State was, it wasn't as bad as Illinois. Anyway, have you seen them make progress?
I have. Yeah, I would say that it's such an interesting discussion because you can make the argument either way, but you think about where Nebraska was in 2017 and 2018. What was the number one thing the fan base was saying? Give us this. They were saying, don't embarrass us on the big stage. Be in a close game. Give us something that we can be proud of. And I think in that sense, Nebraska has come through. They've just played 2 ranked teams on the roads in back-to-back weeks. It was a one-possession game. They had a chance to win both games. And, yeah, you come away disappointed if you're a fan, but they were right there. Like, they weren't outclassed. It wasn't like, wow, they don't belong on the same field. So I think that, in that sense, that's progress. I think you can look at the defense and how far that's come in 3 or 4 years. I mean, it was Swiss cheese 4 years ago against the run.
Yeah.
It was missing assignments. It was chunk play here and there. And now they're pretty darn good.
They're
solid. They're a veteran group. They're going to be, older. They're going to be a veteran group moving forward because they actually have guys that have had a chance to develop within the program. So, like, I think in those ways, this team has come a long way. Physically, they look the part more than they, you think of 2018, Nebraska, Michigan. I won't forget how much more physical Michigan looked than Nebraska
That's
in
right,
that game.
yeah.
You don't see that disparity anymore. So I think those are ways that they've gotten better.
Yeah, they took over a softer program. That's true.
But you can counter that by saying the special teams have been terrible from the start, and they've not gotten better. The penalties have been troublesome. The turnovers, Nebraska continues to give them away, especially through Adrian Martinez. They're not getting them on the defensive side. And then recruiting, I guess, is somewhere in the middle, probably. I mean, they tend to be recruiting at somewhat the same level up until this year with the weird COVID situation. So, like, I guess in the particular areas, the specific areas, it feels like they've kind of been treading water or regressing. When you look at overall where they were 3 years ago, I still feel like this team's in a better place than it was when Scott Frost got here.
Me too. They've made progress. You can see it. It's discernible. They look like a football program that has a plan. Offense to defense. They look like they want to know how they want to complement one another. You're going to read a little bit more about this later this week. But they look like they have an idea of how they want to complement one another in the football game.
Mm-hmm.
I think when they got here, their plan was we're going to score a whole lot of points, and the defense is going to give up a little less than we score, and they're going to create turnovers, and it's going to be awesome. And they kind of did that a little bit in 2018 toward the last half of the year, and then they went to 2019, and the formula didn't work. They had a more talented team in 2019 than they probably do now, but unfortunately it didn't work. Then last year was last year, and this year they look like they look like a whatever you want to call it. They could really use one more dynamic player. We keep talking about how they're going to be better and better and better, and Manning is the one guy the dynamic guy that stayed healthy. Betts has been hurt. He got hurt again. He's been hurt a couple of different times. Allen's been a little banged up. Teray, he shows up. He kind of disappears at times. There's things about his game that can improve. And at the running back position, they're okay.
Gabe Irvin goes down.
I don't think they're great at that position. So, there's a lot of concerns about the offensive line. And I think those are legitimate at this point. I plan on later this week kind of going back and watching every game and watching the offensive line play. When you hear Scott talk, he actually talks more about the run than he does the pass, and I agree with him. I think the pass stuff is bad. It's not good when you're giving up 7 sacks. I don't think all of those sacks are on the line. One of them was absolutely on Adrian because he sat there and ran around for 10 seconds, and then he got the ball stripped. So that was his fault.
Mm-hmm.
But their run blocking is not good enough. They don't create any sort of, whoa, that big 7-yard hole every so often.
There's no Joel Klatt. Look at the size of the truck you could drive through. That doesn't happen.
No, and I'll tell you what, in 2018 it did. They had games like that where they opened some giant frickin' holes. And it's surprising to me that the group has just regressed. And I think the group's talented, but darn if they don't feel it doesn't look like they play very well together. There's not a lot of chemistry there. You go back and look at the 2018 line, which was what? It was Tanner Farmer and Gerald Foster and a walk-on. I can't even remember all the guys that were on that line, but they played together. And the defense was the problem. We're like, oh, when are they going to solve this crap with the defense,
Right.
Well, they have. And now the offense is playing the way it is. And so you just wonder if there's ever going to be a moment in the near future where it puts all together.
The O-line part's interesting, too, because it's hard to identify, and maybe you can speak more to this, but it's hard to identify, how much of it is individual play, how maybe their technique's not great or their strength or whatever, and how much of it's, the cohesive unit not acting in concert.
Right.
When you watch that film, what do you identify? Is it an individual thing or is it the line?
Let's go to the words Frost had. Let's start there. And where you start is, and I got to go back and watch the line specifically. When I rewatch games, there's certainly guys that get in, there's defensive linemen who get inside. They beat tackles inside, which that shouldn't happen. So they beat tackles inside. There are late free runners, guys that come through. There's twists that Nebraska doesn't pick up. That's communication stuff. But let's just go to the word Scott had. He wants them to play with more of an attitude, more of a nasty. Man, that's an indictment. That's not. You don't want to hear that as a lineman. Hey, I need you to be nastier. You can kind of say that to a receiver, and they're like, okay. But you're right. When you say that to a lineman, what you're saying is you're not tough. You're not playing tough enough. That's just a hard thing to hear.
Yeah, that's the essence of the position.
Yeah. So, he's really challenging them. And again, I'm not here to carry frostwater. I never have. I've appreciated the comment he had after the game. They were a little tough. But on Monday, I thought it was very good. I thought he said things that were tough, but fans wanted to hear. I think they want to hear that the head coach of the football program is identifying these things and isn't whatever, where he's actually able to say it and actually say, hey, we're working on this and we need to find this and this, versus going up there and going, we're trying to fix everything. People don't like hearing that. They don't like hearing, yep, you're right, you're trying to fix your front seven, which is playing really well. I'm sure you are. They want to hear specifics, and he gave them. And right. I appreciated the specificity of what he said.
I thought the other part of that conversation that I appreciated was he actually mentioned his own benching and how that helped, or Adrian Martinez's benching last year, or Cam Jurgens, who was benched briefly last year for snap issues. Just because the O-line's making changes doesn't mean that those guys won't ever come back or won't learn anything. It just means, darn it, sometimes you got a lot of fire. maybe see something from a different perspective and just try something different, because as Matt Sichterman, the right guard, said, you can't expect something different to happen if you're doing the same things over and over again.
And I kind of thought it was the 2 tackles, but, he made a point of saying the left guard, which is an ongoing issue. Sure.
Yeah, they've already changed that.
Yeah. So we'll see what they do. But, they could play Brant Banks there. They could play Brock Bando there. I think the tackle play has been not what they'd hoped. And so hopefully they can figure an answer out and try to run maybe right-handed, maybe put Turner Corcoran over on the right side and run the football. They got to run the football better. It's not just pass blocking. We're not afraid of anything you do. Like, we're not afraid. We're going to beat your run blocks, and when you guys set to pass block, we're going to run through you. Not just around you, but through you.
And how much did that show up late against Michigan State? They'd get in the red zone, and you just knew they weren't comfortable running the ball.
Right.
They're throwing, horizontally. They were running with Adrian. They didn't feel like even the play calls.
They run the triple option stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the play calls were not such that it felt to me like they believed that they could run the ball right at you.
Unless it's Brody Belt.
Well,
that was a joke.
Yeah.
Brody Belt said today. Belt
They
said
had-
today that was supposed to be an option, and Adrian just read it, and that was the read.
Right. There's a couple plays that they need to go ahead and put in the dustbin. The first play is the Brody Belt play, which is a play that needs to be put away. The other one is the thing where he flipped the ball to Austin Allen. We've seen that play before. Luke McCaffrey ran that play. Adrian ran it back, and throw it away. Throw the play away. Don't use it. Don't just stop. But I generally thought the play calling was pretty good. Like, I thought, they're doing the best they can, and then they get to the first play of overtime, and they got a touchdown call, and he doesn't throw the ball. And to me, that's not about him that's about trust. To me, that's about, I don't trust that this is going to turn out well. Like,
You want to talk
want to
about
throw into traffic. He wants to throw to a safe throw because he doesn't want to blow it, because he doesn't trust the guys that are out there.
You want to talk about trust? How about swallowing 2 timeouts at the end of regulation because you don't think that what do you say, that more bad could happen with goodness? I'm talking about Frost now.
Yeah, it's tough.
That's trust. That's an indictment, and I don't think I think it's probably more of an offensive line thing than it is an Adrian thing.
Oh,
they just
no question.
They didn't trust. He didn't trust that they'd be able to protect him well enough. But I mean, I think there was like 18 seconds left, so they were up against it. They probably needed to hit 2 sizable plays, but they're at the 32. It's not impossible.
No, it wasn't.
It's not impossible. That was telling to me. That was
They're
telling.
afraid to punt.
That too.
But no, I think what they want, they could have certainly said, hey, all goes here. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can get something in the middle of the field. Let's all goes, and you can adjust one of them. And they didn't do it. I think they are concerned that they can't protect him, and they don't want him to fumble.
And we talked about the sack numbers. Think how many sacks that Adrian saved from being on the stat sheet. How many free runners does he miss? How much time does he buy for himself? You shudder to think.
Yeah, it is. Adrian's not going to throw interceptions if he can help it. So there are times when the ball is held on to because it's not going to be thrown. And usually quarterbacks fit into 2 categories. Usually, 1, I will take a sack because I am not throwing a pick. 2, I'm going to throw the ball because I'm not taking a sack. And Adrian, generally speaking, is in the first category. Like, he's not throwing an interception. And other quarterbacks, Tanner Lee, was in the other category. I'm throwing the ball because I'm not taking a sack. And so
Adrian's evolved in that way, I would say,
He has.
over his career. He's fallen more into the risk avoidance, I think, the longer he's gone on here.
Yeah, you need to be able to have confidence though in your arm, and you got to believe that you can throw just about any pass on the planet if you're going to be really good. And so hopefully he gets to that point where he's able to, feels like the guys that he's throwing to are up to the challenge, because I think sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm turning this down. I'm not sure if they're going to make the play I need them to make. I don't know. I'm probably projecting. Adrian would probably say I'm full of crap, and maybe I am. I think he's a pretty smart guy, a really smart guy, and I don't think he looked at that play and was like, I don't know what if I should throw it to that guy. Like, I think he's just, he has a little hesitant on some of those, and he's just got to let it fly.
You talked about the two type of quarterbacks there, Sam. There's a middle ground here. You could just throw it away. Like on the play you talked about with the fumble, Adrian's rolling left and rolling left and rolling left and rolling left. Just get rid of the ball.
Yep.
Just restart, survive.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, he likes to keep plays alive, and for good reason at times. He's able to scramble out of some unbelievable situations. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's times when he can throw it away, and he doesn't have to press the issue. Tommy Armstrong was the opposite. He loved to throw the ball. Tommy was Brett Favre. He literally
Gunslinger.
was mentored by Brett Favre. He wanted to YOLO. We used to make the YOLO bomb.
He had the YOLOs, yep.
Yeah. And he was willing to do it. Adrian is not a YOLO thrower, which is okay. He's not throwing any interceptions. That's good.
That's true. So I think we all agree the successful season for Nebraska is 6 wins. That's where you got to start. You got to make a bowl game.
Sure.
So when you look at the rest of Nebraska's schedule now, you've got in the next 9 weeks, you've got 5 home games, 2 road games, and then 2 bye weeks. They only go on the road twice the rest of the regular season. What's kind of the map to 6, and how does that maybe more specifically start with Northwestern this weekend?
Well, Northwestern's real bad, so there's your map to 6 right there. There's one.
Okay.
There's one. Purdue is another one. You probably should get that one. And as Sam said, Minnesota looks more gettable by the day. So it's, the map is there. You just got to beat one of those other teams that are a little bit better than these. I mean, Wisconsin would probably be the one that stands out the most. It's a road game. It's tough, but oh boy, that offense is struggling. I know Notre Dame's defense is pretty good, but Wisconsin's not scaring you a ton. On the field, though, the roadmap is just don't special teams. You can make so many special teams mistakes that don't cost you the game. Like the Samori Toure, as much as it is puzzling that they didn't have someone else to replace him on Saturday, it's not. That stuff is smaller potatoes. That's why it's called hidden yardage. Just don't. Small. It's smaller. I didn't say small. It's smaller. Daniel Cherney, that stuff. The 7-yard punts, the kicking it to the wrong side of the field and allowing a punt return touchdown, getting extra points blocked, fumbling.
Yeah.
That stuff. That stuff you can clean up real easy. That stuff you can save so much headache over. You can save so much headache over that sort of stuff.
You can try to clean it up, but again, it's totally dependent on the person kicking the ball.
True. Very true.
It's not a moral issue. I mean, you could almost apply a moral to, hey man, learn how to field these punts. If you got to stay, you figure it out, but we need somebody, if you not stay 3 hours afterward to figure out how to field punts forward, and you do it. Punting is not, the stuff with the kicking is just not a moral thing. Like, the ball literally can come, I guarantee the ball just came off wrong.
Okay.
And I'm sure it made him sick to his stomach. It's like a golfer that's like, don't hit it in the ocean, and then you do. You hook it right in. It's up there. It's tough. I'm just saying that's the nature of kicking.
I hear you. I think that one of those guys, I feel confident saying one of those guys is going to figure it out.
I do too.
To a certain degree, though. So that sort of stuff you can get cleaned up. The other thing is just people run the ball passably. We're not talking, they're not going to be Kenneth Walker pre-Nebraska. They're not going to be able to run the ball like Ohio State runs the ball. It's not going to happen. 3.7 yards per carry, 4 yards
Which
per
against
carry.
Michigan State they did.
Right.
They were okay.
Well, Adrian obviously always skews those numbers, but just be able to get a push, some lanes, help out Ramir Johnson, Sevion Morrison. That will help take so much pressure off of Adrian, who's already carrying so much, and getting healthier. Getting healthier is, getting Oliver Martin back would help solve the punt return issue, would give him some more options in the receiving game. Xavier Betts seemed like he was really coming on in the first half before he got hurt. Getting him back would probably help. So you got 3 games that I think they probably should win, and you got one that you got to steal. And, the one thing I left out, defense, doesn't have to keep playing like this, but it has to keep churning out these kinds of results. It doesn't have to keep playing like this because the offenses are in the Big Ten are not great. But these sorts of results, holding teams to 20-ish points, that's going to help.
Right.
And that probably needs to keep happening.
the run game's awfully diverse, so they're asking him to block a lot of different things, and we'll just have to see it. Well, when you simplify it, then you gotta execute the things that you simplify down to. I mean, you're not taking the triple option stuff away. It's just when I walked out of that game, my first feeling wasn't that the offensive line was lame. They made their same amount of stupid mistakes with the false starts, but by the end of that game, I was like, Nebraska more or less was the better, more physical team. And I didn't walk out of that game going, now the one thing they got to do on Monday is, get a couple of these linemen out of here and then put a couple other guys in. That's Scott Frost. He thinks that. That's cool. We'll see how it goes. Maybe it's the answer. We'll see. We'll see what happens. The map to 6. Northwestern, Michigan, Minnesota, Purdue. 4 in a row. That's the map.
Okay, all right.
And you win one, you come back, prime time, you win another one. You go play a Minnesota team that I don't know where they're going to be. And then you got to find a way to beat Purdue, which is always a weird matchup for Nebraska. Purdue schemes Nebraska pretty well. But if you're asking me which 4 games, it's probably those 4. Don't like the Ohio State matchup. Wisconsin, we'll see. That's going to be 10-7, And then Iowa, I don't know. I was a hard team to figure out. I had them 5th in the country, 5th or 6th in the country, and Iowa could have 3 losses by the time they play Nebraska. And they could
be.
You just don't. Iowa's offense is so inert that it's hard to understand. Like, it's hard to get a grasp on. They don't have a good quarterback. They don't. So it's hard because he's not real good. So they can't take advantage of all the things that they want to do throwing the football, and so they're limited. But at the same time, they could be 11-0 when they come to Nebraska. Because they could win every single game this way, in theory, the way they've been winning them.
Mm-hmm.
My hunch is they won't, and that they'll be 9-2. And Nebraska will be like a 4-point underdog. Iowa's a 3-point favorite this week. 3 points at Maryland. That tells you everything you need to know about where Iowa is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would say the map is those are the 4 that I would pick. Of those, the hardest is Michigan. Michigan's probably going to be top 10 when it comes to Lincoln, top 12.
They didn't look great against Rutgers last
They
weekend.
didn't.
They've looked great. They've looked great before that, though.
They did. So we'll see. I mean, the Michigan game, if they can beat Northwestern this weekend, that Michigan game is huge.
Yep.
Biggest game in a long time. Be fun, too. Prime time, all that stuff.
The Northwestern matchup is interesting to me because, as we've talked about before, it's that team that won't have more talent than you, but it's that team that will allow you to beat yourself if you're willing to do that. And so I think it comes at a really interesting time for Nebraska where the false starts are piled up, where the special teams miscues are all over the place, where the offense and the blocking has been erratic. Like I told you guys at practice, I think it's like Northwestern is Homer Simpson in a boxing match, and everyone else wails on him, and they just get tired, and he's still standing. And then all he has to do is nudge you over at the end because you've tired yourself out from the self-inflicted mistakes or whatever it might be. It feels like every week we learn a little something about Nebraska. Like last week, it was, hey, their run defense actually is pretty darn good. The way they bottled up Kenneth Walker from Michigan State. And to me, that's the thing this weekend is, as much as it maybe looks like Nebraska's improved since Illinois, have they gotten to the point now where they can beat teams that they have more talent than? I think Northwestern's just the perfect example of that because they're not going to beat themselves with penalties or whatever else. And so if Nebraska actually has made those adjustments, I think we'll see it. And if they haven't, then I don't see any reason to believe things are going to change in the second half. I think that's who they will be.
It's fair. I mean, it's very fair. I don't know if they're going to do it. That's the map to it.
Yeah. I think one other thing I was going to mention about the Michigan State game that I thought was so tough too was, so they play at night, and it just felt like as we watched games in the afternoon, I don't know about you, but I felt like, man, the Big Ten is just, it's not fantastic this year. I mean, you saw how Wisconsin looked. Iowa was struggling with Colorado State. Michigan was in a rock throwing fight with
Minnesota
Rutgers.
lost to
Minnesota
Bowling
loses
Green.
to Bowling Green. Like, it just felt like, man, if Nebraska came out and had won that game, the whole conversation's different, because you look at the West
You're
and you
probably
say,
picking
man,
them
there's,
as a co-favorite in the West.
I think so too. I mean, there's just,
You're saying
there were so many
Iowa's clear favorite than
deficiencies.
Nebraska.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable how quickly that changed.
right. The margin for error is so thin, and so, like, while there's disappointment and it feels like, man, they can't get over themselves, that's exactly how thin it is. That, man, one punt return of a difference, and Nebraska, again, we're talking about them, being co-favorites in the West. It's just crazy.
We've seen this once before. You know I'm going to try it out there, don't you?
Let's do it.
You probably don't. We've seen this once before. We saw it with the 2009 team, where we knew they were pretty good. And, they went out to Virginia Tech and they truly screwed that game up. They should have won the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then they beat Missouri, played horrible offense for 3 quarters, had this inspired fourth quarter, they win out there. Then they come back and they lose 31-10 to Texas Tech. And then the game. No one will ever forget. And I think it's funny that people have forgotten. The game against Iowa State is unforgettable.
Was it 9?
It was 9-7. It was 8 turnovers, and it was
yeah.
a 9-7 loss. And it was the most anomalous game I think I've ever seen.
Mm.
Where Nebraska got inside the red zone about 4 or 5 times, fumbled the ball every time. Roy Halou didn't tell his coach that he was hurt, and he had like a separated shoulder or something, and he went out there and ran the ball, and he lost it. Then Trey Robinson went out there and lost the ball, and I think it was Keith Williams was picked him up and was like screaming at him, and I mean just berating him. They lost their crap that day. Remember, Niles Paul's running in, and they pop it out from the back.
Yeah,
and remember in the Texas Tech game, Niles Paul doesn't catch the ball, and he just lets it go. And Texas Tech goes and picks it up and runs it in for a touchdown. Everybody's kind of looking around like, what's going on? And then they're like, touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
So they've had these moments, and I'm not saying Nebraska's defense is as good as 2009, because it's not. So the context here is important. But at that moment when they lost to Iowa State, I think a lot of people were looking around and going, what the hell is going on here? The following week they go to Baylor, and they didn't play well. And they played a bad Baylor team because Robert Griffin III was hurt. Baylor wasn't any good. And they survived. They won 20-10. Wasn't a good win by any measure. Lester Ward was the running back, for goodness sakes, that day. And then after that game, all of a sudden, they caught fire. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I am saying that you just never know. Like, you don't know. The components of this team are kind of there. The difference between this team and that 2009 team is Alex Henry. So they had Alex Henry in 2009. He was the best punter in the country. One of the best kickers in the country. Yes, people forget that he was a great punter. The difference between this team and that team is, okay, Sue, but also Alex Henry. And if they had somebody who could do what Henry did, or 2 somebodies, they would be 4-1 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we would be talking about, we'd be kind of whispering, hey, could this team win the West? Like, they're that close to it, but they're that far away because of kicking and punting and returning kicks. It's unbelievable. To me, it's unbelievable that such a thing could take not a program, but a team down, and it really has.
Especially when you can consider how Nebraska was spoiled in terms of kickers and punters
Truly.
for so long.
Yeah.
So long, that was a given, and they had great specialists for a long time.
Sam Cook was the punter, right? He leaves. Yeah. They had a good punter between, I think it was Hayden Felt, between him and Henry. Then Henry's there. Then Brett Maher was there for a long time.
Kyle Larson
then they
was
got
a guy.
Patrick Smith from Western Illinois, and he was like 14-15 kicking. Then Sam,
Yep.
And it doesn't feel like things have been the same since Sam, and that's not fair to, it hasn't, though. They haven't been the same. Like, that one event accelerated a guy that wasn't ready to do it into having to do it, and he wasn't good. And that kind of wrecked his confidence, and they just haven't been right since. And it's certainly obviously not has nothing to do with that, but it is a marker moment where, when that happened, it shifted everything about what Nebraska special teams has been. And then J.D. Spielman leaving didn't help, because Spielman had a kick and a punt return for a touchdown in his career, and they were kind of happy to see him leave, and they've done nothing to replace him. J.D. was good at a lot of things, and he was good at those things, and they've done nothing to replace him. They have not improved one bit.
No.
It's very alarming, and you just hope for the fans' sake that this gets turned around, because this is not the thing you want to take you down as a program. This isn't it. You want to be weak or soft, so somebody can say, hey, we can come in and change the culture. This isn't a cultural issue. This is, you've got a small little group of things that are just absolutely killing you, and can you overcome it? I don't know.
Yeah. Go to picks?
Yeah, let's do it. We got to talk hoops soon. Next week?
Whatever, man.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Next week's good.
I want to ask you one question about hoops.
Let's do it.
Just one.
All right.
There's something there, the way they talk about Alonzo Verge yesterday, Fred Hoiberg, the way he talks about him. There's something there about him and Trey having to kind of share it. Isn't that tricky?
It sounds to me that the way that, I spoke to Trey a little bit about Verge last week at Photo Day. Everyone kind of seems to be on board with Alonzo Verge being primary ball handler. We'll see. Everything's easier said than done, but right now, as it stands right now, Alonzo Verge is the part that strikes me is that he's more of a presence, a leader on that team than I would anticipate for someone who just got there as a transfer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Fred said yesterday that you need your guy who's going to have the ball a ton to be that kind of person. That makes sense to me, obviously. If he's going to be making a lot of decisions, he needs to be able to decipher whether everyone else is doing what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it is kind of, for a team that has some continuity for the first time since Hoiberg's been there, a lot of guys, I don't want to say take their cues from Verge, but they look to him. He's a presence. He's substantial. You know when he's in the room. I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Trey to me seems like I'm just kind of reprocessing what you said. Trey to me seems like a guy that wouldn't necessarily be a problem, but I don't know. He is the returning leading scorer, so I don't know. His job, according to him, is be the defensive guy. And if they win some games, none of this matters. But we'll see. It's an interesting question.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Jimmy's still in the lead. I'm behind by 3. I told you guys I went 7-3 last week. I went 6-4, and Evan is behind by 1. So Jimmy's still in the lead. Iowa, Maryland.
It's got to be Iowa, right? 3 points is a little bit makes me wonder if Vegas knows something, but I'd go Iowa.
Something.
Yeah, I'll go Iowa.
I'm saying Iowa too. I think it'll be a good game though.
Maryland. Ooh. Friday night, they pull it off. Michigan, Wisconsin.
That took me aback. Wow. Wow. I think I'll go Michigan.
Michigan.
Here comes Brady Hoke again.
All right.
Wisconsin.
Why?
Because I don't think their offense is as bad as Notre Dame made them look, and I think their defense is going to bottle up what Michigan wants to do on the ground.
Interesting. I like that take. Michigan. Minnesota, Purdue. To be clear, Minnesota the last time they went to Purdue, it was an embarrassing loss. Purdue lost by a lot. I don't know if they play. They did play last year, and it was a real controversial loss for Minnesota. Remember that with the play late? I don't know. I can't even remember what it was, but
vaguely, yeah.
As someone who watched more than he's prepared to admit of the Illinois Purdue Punt Fest last week, I can't in good conscience pick either of those teams. I'm going Minnesota.
Okay.
I think Minnesota's better than they showed, obviously, last week. I'm going Gophers too.
So am I.
It's hard.
I don't believe much in Purdue. The
also
coach doesn't believe in the quarterbacks.
Losing to Bowling Green, it's hard to play two of that caliber of a stinker in a row.
That's right. Oklahoma at Kansas State.
Oklahoma.
Okay.
OU.
OU. Kansas State.
Oh.
Why?
3 years in a row.
They beat them 2 years in a row, and Oklahoma's not offense. I think they probably need a loss to wake them up a little
With a
bit on
backup
offense.
quarterback, Kansas State?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the other guy was better, but
Yeah.
it's basically a single wing offense.
Yeah, it's true.
Florida, Kentucky. Yeah, I'm picking upsets this week. I don't know
Alright.
why. I just got it. in
Feeling
my
pressure. You're
my
on
belly.
tilt.
No, not really.
Okay.
Kentucky's defense is pretty good, but I'll go Florida.
Okay.
Florida. Be fun to see what Wan'Dale Robinson can do, but Florida.
Florida. Louisville at Wake Forest. Wake Forest is ranked. That's why they're on this list. Probably the only time they will be on this list.
I'm going Wake Forest.
Okay.
Yeah, same. I covered that 07 Nebraska game at Wake Forest.
Undefeated Wake
which
Forest.
It's quite the place, but Wake Forest has nothing to do with anything.
Wake Forest for me, too. Boston College at Clemson.
I mean, it's got to be Clemson. I'm still. I know that I understand now that Clemson is in a different place than it has been. I still got to. I'm not sure that I'm ready to have them tumble as far as it seems like they're ready to tumble.
Right.
They're 2-2 currently, right?
They are. They're playing at home.
Yeah.
2-2 at
Defense
home.
is still nasty.
Still got to go Clemson.
Boston College.
Oh.
Baylor at Oklahoma State.
I like the way Baylor played against Iowa State last week. I did, but I will still take Oklahoma State.
Okie State.
Okie State. Yeah, I don't think Baylor can do that level of performance 2 weeks in a row.
Okie State for me, too. Arizona State at UCLA. I'll
This is
take the
hard.
Bruins.
This is hard. I think Arizona State is better than they have shown so far.
Mhm.
But UCLA runs the crap out of the ball. UCLA.
Arizona State.
Ooh.
Auburn at LSU.
Oh,
Both teams kind of lucky to win last week, but they did. This is a great rivalry game. I love this game every year.
I think do we know? I don't know what the Auburn quarterback situation
Only game to ever
is right
register an
now.
earthquake.
I'm going.
That's a fun fact.
I'm going Auburn. I don't love it, but I'm going Auburn.
I'm going to go with the Tigers of Auburn.
Never rooted for Auburn in this game, and I still won't. LSU. Cincinnati, Notre Dame. Our news colleague, Ryan Hoffman, is going to the game.
Oh,
sweet.
In the World-Herald.
That's
Great.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Have you ever been to Notre Dame?
No.
Football Stadium?
Never.
It's worth it. I was there in 2000 for the game,
The
pretty
Big Red
amazing.
takeover.
but I
Yeah.
was there for another game too. And yeah, I can't recommend it more highly.
Man, wish I knew who Notre Dame's quarterback was going to be this week. I think I'm taking Cincinnati.
Ooh.
WKRP.
Notre Dame.
This is the Brian Kelly Bowl. Obviously, he coached
Yeah.
at Cincinnati before he came to
Marcus
Notre Dame.
Freeman Bowl.
Yep, that's right. Very good. Very good. Very good. That's a good thought. Taking Notre Dame. And Ole Miss at Alabama.
You want to pick an upset, Sam? This is the upset.
Go ahead.
All right, I'm taking Alabama. No, I'm not.
Alabama.
I'm saying if you wanted to pick an upset, this would be.
Alabama.
Okay. Ole Miss.
I knew
Wow.
it. I knew it.
Why?
That offense is good. That offense is
It's
good.
time.
Yeah, they're good. I think their offense is really good. I think Alabama's young in a lot of areas, and Florida exposed a few things. Ole Miss is a better team than Florida. Good offense. Almost beat Alabama last year. And the only reason they didn't beat Alabama last year is because Alabama had an all-world offense. They don't have that now. They don't have Devonta Smith. They don't have Najee Harris. They don't have it. So I'm gonna pick a stunner. I got a lot of upsets. You guys really played it safe this week.
Oh.
Whoa,
a lot of these
boy.
games are close.
I think I'm gonna take Florida.
I picked Cincinnati. Come on
And
now.
I'm gonna take the home
Hey, if we were
team.
betting against the spread, maybe it's a little different, but
I still think we should do
I
that.
don't think getting bored is a reason to be reckless. Come on now.
But are we going to pick Nebraska or no?
we can.
Okay.
Sure.
I think Nebraska wins big this week. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think Northwestern is capital B bad,
Okay.
despite what they did to my beloved Ohio Bobcats last
straight
week.
up?
Everino? Yeah.
I think they'll win straight up. It's so interesting because the series has been close over the years. objectively, you look at the results, Nebraska should win this thing running away. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. But yeah, give me Nebraska.
Nebraska for me as well. We'll see. We'll see if my upset picks come through. I don't think some of these. The only one on the list that actually gives me genuine pause is Kansas State. I'm not pausing on the other ones too much.
Not pausing on Ole Miss.
No.
Okay.
No. If I was going to rank the ones that I had pause on, it would go Kansas State, Maryland, Boston College, and then Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
I feel pretty good about that.
Borderline lock.
No,
Wow.
I could be wrong. I expect to be wrong, but you never know. Sometimes I'm right. I got Arkansas last week.
It's true.
You did.
I picked Western Kentucky in my picks column to beat Indiana, and they should have. They lost by 2. That's the way it goes. Sometimes you take risks in life. What fun is it if you pick the favorite every single time? That's our Pick 6 podcast.
Yeah.
Picking the favorites.
Thank you all for taking a risk and listening to us. Enjoy the game this weekend. It's going to be another late one and the weekend after that. So we're going to be on deadline. You guys are going to be having a lot of fun. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.